The morning sun spilled golden light across the manicured gardens of Willowbrook Manor, catching the delicate lace of Emily's wedding gown and making the crystal chandeliers in the reception hall sparkle like captured starlight. The air was alive with laughter and soft murmurs as guests mingled under white tints adorned with cascading flowers. There was a sense of perfection in the day, the kind of perfection that comes only once and yet somehow feels fragile. Emily stood in front of the mirror, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the veil over her shoulders. Her reflection showed a bride who radiated joy, yet beneath that smile was a flutter of nerves. Today was the day she had dreamed of since childhood. Daniel, her fiancé, was waiting at the altar, and everything seemed to be going exactly as it should. Or at least that's what she wanted to believe. Downstairs, Daniel straightened his tie in the mirror, his jaw tight. To the casual observer, he looked calm, even charming, but there was a tension in his shoulders, a subtle unease that he tried to hide behind a practiced smile. His best man, Mark, clapped him on the back. "Relax, man, you've got this. Today you're the happiest man alive." Daniel forced a nod. "Yeah, of course, just can't wait to see her walk down the aisle." Outside, guests began arriving, their laughter echoing across the gardens. The wedding planner checked her clipboard nervously, ensuring that every detail was flawless. Flower arrangements, table settings, seating charts, all perfect. The soft strains of a string quartet drifted through the air, blending with the murmur of excited conversations. Everything was beautiful, serene, almost too perfect. Emily's maid of honor, Claire, approached her, her eyes flickering with concern. "Hey, Em, are you sure everything's okay? You look a little tense." Emily smiled, forcing warmth into her voice. "I'm fine, just the jitters, you know." Claire nodded, unconvinced. "All right, if you say so. Just be careful today. You know how emotions run high at weddings." Emily nodded, though she couldn't shake the strange feeling that had settled in her stomach that morning. Something small, almost imperceptible, had triggered it, a glance from a desk she didn't recognize, lingering just a moment too long, a whisper of movement at the edge of her vision. She shook her head. "It's nothing, just nerves." Meanwhile, Daniel greeted guests with a smile that never reached his eyes. He shook hands, posed for photos, and laughed at jokes, but there was a subtle stiffness in his demeanor. Emily noticed it during our brief glance exchanged across the lawn. Something in his expression made her uneasy, a shadow she couldn't name. The ceremony began, and the air seemed to hold its breath. Emily walked down the aisle, her father at her side. Guests rose, whispers of admiration and joy rippling through the crowd. Daniel's eyes met hers, and for a moment, everything felt right. The music swelled, the vows were exchanged, and the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Applause erupted, cameras flashed, and the couple shared a radiant kiss. As the reception moved into full swing, the laughter and chatter masked an undercurrent of tension. Emily noticed subtle glances exchanged between certain guests, whispers that halted when she approached. Daniel was charming with everyone, but she caught him checking his phone more than once, his brow furrowing with each glance. Something was off. The photographer, an older man named Mr. Collins, moved quietly through the crowd, capturing moments that would later become treasured memories. But even he paused, lowering his camera slightly, when he noticed something peculiar in the background of a photo, a shadowy figure lingering near the garden hedge. He frowned but dismissed it as a guest moving through the frame. Emily's mother approached her, fussing over her gown. "Darling, you look perfect, absolutely perfect." Her eyes sparkled with pride, but Emily noticed a flicker of something else, anxiety perhaps, worry that she tried to mask. Emily excused herself and stepped out onto the terrace for a moment of quiet. The scent of roses and freshly cut grass mingled with the faint hint of sea air drifting from the nearby lake. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to calm the fluttering unease inside. Then she heard it, a faint, high-pitched scream from the garden. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to make Emily's heart lurch. She spun around, scanning the crowd. Guests were frozen mid-laugh, some turning toward the sound with confusion etched across their faces. Daniel appeared beside her, his hand gripping hers tightly. What was that?" he asked, his voice tight. I don't know," Emily stammered, her nerves fraying. Other guests began to murmur, glancing toward the garden. The music faltered, a note lingering in the air like a question. Claire rushed to Emily's side, her eyes wide. "Emily, should we—" Before anyone could react further, a man stumbled out from the garden path, pale and shaking. It's terrible," he gasped. It's someone's dead." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Emily's knees felt weak as she gripped Daniel's arm. The perfect day, the day she had envisioned countless times, was fracturing before her eyes. Guests clustered together, some crying, some frozen in disbelief. The string quartet had stopped playing, leaving an eerie silence broken only by whispered speculation and the distant sound of sirens approaching. Emily tried to steady her breathing, but her mind raced. Who could have done this, and why? The garden, which had moments before seemed so idyllic, now felt sinister and unfamiliar. Daniel held her close, whispering reassurances she didn't hear. Her eyes scanned the crowd desperately, searching for answers, for anyone who could explain what had just shattered their celebration. And then she saw it, a figure slipping silently through the crowd, unnoticed by anyone else, watching, waiting. Emily's stomach sank. Something told her that this day, the day meant for love and joy, was only just beginning its descent into chaos.
The sirens grew louder as panic swept through the guests. Some clutched their phones, calling loved ones or the authorities. Others stood frozen, unable to comprehend that the joyous celebration had been shattered in an instant. Emily clung to Daniel's arm, her mind spinning. How could a day so carefully planned turn into this? Detective Harris arrived shortly after, a tall man in a dark overcoat whose sharp eyes took in every detail with a quiet intensity. He moved methodically through the crowd, his notebook in hand, jotting down observations as he spoke to the first responders. "Everyone stay calm," he instructed. "We need statements from all who were near the garden." Emily and Daniel were ushered aside, the wedding that was meant to celebrate their union now suspended in a haze of fear. Detective Harris examined the garden meticulously, noting the crushed petals underfoot and the slight disturbance in the soil near the ornamental fountain. The victim, Gregory Marshall, a close family friend, was lying lifelessly at the base of a flowering magnolia tree, his face frozen in shock. Emily's stomach turned as she approached, the reality of death at her wedding sinking in. Who would do this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel's jaw tightened, and he struggled to maintain a semblance of composure. "I don't know, Em. I don't know." Harris crouched near the body, examining the angle of the wounds. "Blunt force trauma," he muttered under his breath. "Possibly a struggle." He stood abruptly, scanning the crowd. "No one leaves the grounds. Everyone is a potential witness or a suspect." Guests whispered among themselves, their laughter from earlier now a memory that felt almost cruel. Claire guided Emily to a nearby bench, trying to shield her from the worst of the scene. "Emily, I know it's bad, but you have to stay calm. We'll figure this out." As Emily tried to steady herself, her eyes caught movement near the hedge. The mysterious guest she had noticed earlier was gone. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Could it be them? She wondered, but the thought was dismissed almost immediately by rational fear. She didn't want to believe that someone she had barely noticed could be responsible for something so horrific. Meanwhile, Daniel's phone buzzed repeatedly. He ignored it at first, but then a call came through that he couldn't ignore. He stepped aside, answering in a low voice. Emily strained to hear, catching fragments of words that made her chest tighten. "Can't explain? Everything's ruined? Family?" Harris noticed the conversation and made a mental note. Keep your phones on. No deleting messages, no conversations that aren't documented, he warned. Then he turned his attention to the guests, separating them into groups for questioning. Who saw anything suspicious? Who approached the garden? Conflicting stories emerged almost immediately. Some guests claimed they had been taking photos near the fountain, while others insisted they hadn't noticed anything unusual. One woman, shaking visibly, mentioned seeing a flash of movement, a hand perhaps, before the scream. Another insisted it was the wind moving the branches. Emily struggled to make sense of the chaos around her. Her gaze fell on Daniel, and for the first time she noticed the tightness in his hands, the way his knuckles whitened as he gripped his phone. She felt a pang of fear. Does he know something? Harris continued his investigation, moving with a practiced efficiency. He collected the wedding photos, noting that Mr. Collins had captured moments that might reveal clues. A quick review revealed a shadowy figure near the magnolia just moments before Gregory's death, someone who didn't belong in the wedding party. Harris's eyebrows furrowed. That's our first solid lead. Emily felt herself being pulled aside again, this time by Detective Harris himself. "I need you to tell me exactly what you saw this morning," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "Every detail matters, no matter how small it seems." She recounted the strange figure near the hedge, the flutter of unease she had felt, and the sudden scream. Harris listened intently, taking notes, occasionally nodding. "Good, that's helpful. Did you see anyone leave the grounds afterward?" Emily shook her head. "No, everyone was still here, but I think someone slipped through the crowd after the scream. I didn't get a good look." Harris's eyes narrowed. "All right, stay close. Do not leave the premises." As he moved on to other guests, a new tension arose. Whispers of suspicion spread like wildfire. Guests began eyeing one another with caution, wondering if the killer was standing among them. Old grudges, small rivalries, and jealousies that had gone unnoticed now took on a dangerous significance. Emily's mind drifted to her family. Her brother Matthew had seemed unusually quiet that morning, avoiding conversation. Her aunt, who had always been critical of Daniel, was unusually fidgety, avoiding eye contact. Could it be someone I know? She thought, a rising sense of dread twisting in her stomach. Meanwhile, Daniel had slipped into a corner, scrolling through his phone with a furrowed brow. A message caught Emily's eye as he typed rapidly, words flashing on the screen. It happened. Now what? Panic clutched at her chest. Who was he texting? What had happened that she didn't know about? She wanted to confront him, but Harris's watchful eyes prevented any action. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes, as the investigation unfolded. Harris pieced together statements, photos, and surveillance footage from nearby streets. Guests were questioned multiple times, tensions escalating with each retelling. The idyllic garden that had held the promise of a perfect day now felt like a cage of fear. Then came a discovery that turned the day on its head. A small gift bag, intended for the newlyweds, was found in the bushes near the garden. It had been tossed aside, and when opened, it contained an item that immediately drew Harris's attention. A letter with threats against Gregory, mentioning secrets that could destroy lives. Emily's hand shook as Harris examined the letter. "This changes everything," he muttered. "The murder was not a random act. Someone had a motive, and it's personal." Daniel's face paled when he saw the letter. Emily noticed the way he flinched, the subtle shift in his demeanor. Her heart pounded. Does he know more than he's letting on? Harris called the wedding party together, instructing them to remain calm and not leave the grounds. The once celebratory hall was now filled with a tense silence, punctuated only by murmured speculation and the occasional sob. Harris moved methodically, determined to untangle the web of lies, secrets, and hidden motives that had transformed a day of joy into a nightmare. Emily clung to Daniel, her mind racing, realizing that the day had taken a turn from which nothing would ever be the same. Somewhere among the guests, perhaps even someone she trusted, was a killer. and the perfect wedding, the day she had envisioned her whole life, was now a scene of fear, suspicion, and dark secrets that would only deepen as the investigation continued. The garden, the flowers, the laughter, they were gone, replaced by shadows, whispered fears, and the chilling reminder that nobody saw this coming.
The day had turned into a nightmare, and the once bright gardens of Willowbrook Manor now seemed almost suffocating in their silence. Detective Harris had retreated to a quiet corner with his notes and the wedding photos, piecing together the fragments of what had happened. Emily and Daniel were seated nearby, still reeling from the events, their hands clasped tightly, but an unspoken tension had begun to grow between them. Harris called Emily over. "I need you to recall everything you noticed before the scream. Even the smallest detail could matter." Emily's mind raced. I remember noticing a shadow near the magnolia tree before the ceremony began, and I thought I saw someone slipping through the crowd after the scream, but I couldn't see who it was." Harris nodded thoughtfully. "Good. That's helpful. Sometimes the smallest observation breaks the case wide open. Did you notice anything else unusual? Texts, calls, interactions?" Emily hesitated. Her eyes drifted to Daniel, who was scrolling through his phone, brow furrowed. The message she had glimpsed earlier still lingered in her mind. It happened. Now what? "Daniel received a message," she said finally, her voice trembling. I don't know what it means, but it seems serious. He looked worried." Harris's gaze sharpened. "I'll need access to his phone and messages. Nothing gets left unchecked." As he moved to question other guests, Emily's thoughts returned to her family. Her brother, Matthew, had been unusually distant all morning, avoiding eye contact. Her aunt had seemed preoccupied, almost nervous. The tiny cracks in their composure that she had ignored before now seemed glaringly suspicious. Meanwhile, Daniel had become defensive when Harris approached. "It's just a text from a friend," he insisted, his voice tight. "It has nothing to do with this." Harris studied him carefully. "I'll decide what matters. For now, stay available." Emily's unease deepened. She had married the man she loved, but now doubts gnawed at her. What was he hiding? And why did it feel like the wedding itself had become a trap, revealing secrets no one had meant to uncover? Hours passed as Harris and his team combed through evidence. They reviewed every photograph, every statement. That's when a startling pattern emerged. The shadow Emily had seen earlier appeared in multiple photos, near the hedge, near the fountain, even close to the reception hall. But no one could identify the figure. At the same time, the letter found in the bushes offered new clues. It hinted at a secret that could destroy lives, threatening Gregory specifically. Harris's mind worked rapidly. Who knew enough about Gregory to want him dead? And who could act with such cold calculation in the middle of a crowded wedding? Then came another revelation. A wedding guest, Rachel, approached Harris hesitantly. "Detective, I think I know something," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Gregory, he found out about Daniel's financial trouble. He'd been lending money to someone who didn't want him talking about it." Harris's eyes narrowed. "Daniel?" Rachel nodded reluctantly. "I don't want to accuse anyone, but Gregory mentioned that he was going to confront someone. I didn't think it was serious at the time. He didn't give names, just hints." Emily's heart sank. She looked at Daniel, who avoided her gaze, a faint pallor on his face. "Daniel, what is this?" she asked softly. Daniel shook his head. "It's not what you think, Em. I didn't... Gregory, he found out about some things, but it's complicated. I didn't hurt him." Harris interjected, calm but firm. "Complicated or not, we need the truth. Every detail matters." Meanwhile, another layer of tension began to emerge as Harris examined the interactions of Emily's family. Subtle body language, quick glances, nervous fidgeting hinted at unspoken resentments. Matthew had always felt overshadowed by his sister's accomplishments. Could envy have escalated into violence? Her aunt, previously polite but stern, had a history of manipulation within the family. Every interaction now seemed loaded with potential motive. Hours turned into late afternoon, and Emily's anxiety deepened. She remembered small details from months before, the arguments between Daniel and Gregory about money, Matthew's subtle warnings that the wedding might not go smoothly, even her mother's uneasy glances whenever Daniel's name was mentioned. Each memory felt like a puzzle piece snapping into place, forming an image that terrified her. Detective Harris gathered everyone into the reception hall. "We've identified several inconsistencies in statements," he announced. "This was no random act. Someone planned this. Someone had a motive. And based on evidence from photographs, messages, and witness accounts, we believe the killer had been observing the scene long before the murder occurred." Gasps filled the hall. Guests glanced at each other nervously, realizing that the person responsible could be anyone, perhaps even someone they trusted implicitly. Emily felt a cold hand of fear tighten around her heart. Her eyes swept the crowd, lingering on familiar faces with suspicion she had never felt before. Friends, family, even Daniel. Anyone could be hiding the truth. Then came another twist. Harris revealed that Gregory's body had defensive wounds, indicating that he had struggled with someone he recognized. That meant the killer was someone Gregory trusted, or at least someone who could get close without arousing suspicion. The tension escalated when Harris examined the wedding photos more closely. He noticed that in one frame, Daniel's hand brushed against something in his suit pocket, a flash of paper that could have been a clue or a message. The timing aligned with Rachel's account. Daniel and Gregory had been in conflict over money. Emily confronted Daniel privately. "Tell me everything, now." Her voice was a mixture of fear and determination. Daniel hesitated, then sighed, shoulders slumping. "Gregory found out I owed a large sum of money to someone I shouldn't have borrowed from," he admitted. "He confronted me earlier today. I argued with him, but I didn't kill him, Emily." Emily's stomach churned. If Daniel didn't do it, then who? And why had he been so secretive? The day that had begun with love and laughter was now steeped in secrets, lies, and suspicion. Detective Harris, noticing their exchange, stepped in. "Emily, Daniel, I need to question you both thoroughly. This is not just about what happened in the garden. It's about everything leading up to it. Relationships, grudges, past conflicts, everything matters." As the questioning began, Emily felt a chilling realization. The murder was only the surface of a much deeper web. Secrets she had never imagined were being exposed in the daylight, and the more she learned, the more she realized how little she truly knew about those closest to her. Hours of statements, photo analysis, and cross-referencing timelines brought Harris closer to understanding the puzzle. But one fact stood out above all else. The killer had been hiding in plain sight, moving among the guests, observing, waiting, and blending seamlessly into the wedding. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she looked around. The perfect wedding, the celebration of love and joy, had become a minefield of suspicion. Every smile, every gesture, every glance could conceal a motive, a lie, a deadly secret. And somewhere in that crowd, the killer was still watching, perhaps waiting for the next move to ensure the truth remained buried until Detective Harris could unravel the tangled web of deception and reveal the shocking reality no one had seen coming. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the gardens. The only cheerful laughter of the guests was gone, replaced with whispers, hushed fears, and the heavy weight of revelation. The wedding day had turned deadly, and the path to the truth was only just beginning. The sky over Willowbrook Manor had darkened to a bruised twilight as Detective Harris called everyone together in the reception hall. The guests, still shaken from the chaos earlier, clustered in tight groups, whispering anxiously. Emily clutched Daniel's hand, her knuckles white, trying to steady herself. The room felt thick with tension, every pair of eyes darting nervously around, wondering if the killer was among them. Harris cleared his throat, his commanding presence silencing the room instantly. After reviewing statements, photographs, and messages, and examining the sequence of events leading up to Gregory Marshall's death, I am confident we are ready to reveal the person responsible. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some gasped, some stiffened, and others instinctively looked around as if the very walls of the manor might conceal the truth. Emily's heart hammered in her chest. She had feared Daniel might be guilty, but now, with Harris's words, the fear twisted into something more complex, dread that the killer was someone she had trusted implicitly. Harris's eyes scanned the room, finally settling on Matthew, Emily's younger brother. He stood awkwardly near the back, arms crossed, trying to appear casual, but his discomfort betrayed him. "Matthew," Harris began, his voice firm yet calm, "you've been evasive since we started. Your statements contained inconsistencies that didn't match the timeline of the events, and photographs placed you near the garden moments before the scream." Matthew's face went pale, and Emily took a step forward. "No, that's impossible," she cried. "My brother, he wouldn't, he couldn't." Harris held up a hand. "Stay calm, let me explain." Gregory had discovered a secret, one that Matthew had been hiding for years. He confronted Matthew this morning about embezzling money from the family business. That confrontation escalated, and in a moment of panic, Matthew struck him with a decorative magnolia stake. The act was impulsive, yes, but calculated enough to blend in with the crowd immediately after. The room was silent except for Emily's shocked gasp. Daniel's hand squeezed hers, a mixture of fear and relief etched on his face. Matthew opened his mouth to protest, but the words caught in his throat. The evidence was overwhelming. Harris presented the photographs showing Matthew near the garden, the letters threatening Gregory that Matthew had attempted to stage, and the witnesses who had seen him slipping through the crowd just before the scream. Emily's knees buckled. "Why, Matthew? Why would you do this?" Her voice trembled with a mixture of sorrow, disbelief, and anger. Matthew's expression was a twisted mask of desperation and regret. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I wanted to stop him from ruining everything. He was going to expose me, Emily, expose me and the family. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Harris stepped closer, his voice measured. "The law doesn't distinguish between intention and action in matters of life and death. You will be taken into custody." As officers moved to arrest Matthew, a ripple of shock and disbelief swept through the guests. The quiet murmurs grew louder, and Emily felt her world collapsing. She had spent her life trusting her family, and now the betrayal was so raw, so personal, that it was almost unbearable. Daniel put a hand on her shoulder. "Em, I'm here. We'll get through this," he said softly, though the weight of everything pressed heavily on him, too. Emily nodded, though her mind was spinning. The idyllic wedding day, the perfect ceremony, the laughter and celebration, it had all been shattered in the span of a few terrifying hours. And yet, amidst the horror, she felt a flicker of clarity. The truth, painful as it was, had come to light. Harris addressed the room again. "The investigation isn't over. While we have determined the primary perpetrator, the events of this day reveal the depth of secrets, rivalries, and hidden motives that can exist even in the most familiar circles. Everyone will need to cooperate fully as we close this case." The guests slowly dispersed, many too shocked to speak. Emily and Daniel remained seated, holding hands, the silence between them heavy but necessary. They had survived the nightmare, but the cost was immeasurable. The wedding that was supposed to be a celebration of love had become a stark reminder of betrayal, secrecy, and the fragility of trust. Emily's thoughts returned to the moments before the scream, the shadow by the magnolia, the fleeting movements, the small signs she had dismissed. In hindsight, every small detail had pointed to the inevitable, yet no one had truly seen it coming. She realized that life could pivot in an instant, that the people closest to her could harbor motives she never imagined. Daniel squeezed her hand. "We can't change what happened today," he said quietly, "but we can face tomorrow together." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. She leaned against him, seeking comfort in the one thing that had survived the chaos, their bond, fragile but real. The future was uncertain, scarred by betrayal, but not entirely lost. Detective Harris made a last sweep of the grounds before leaving. The killer was in custody. The family would face consequences, confront difficult truths, and perhaps find some measure of healing. And though the shadows of that day would linger, the light of truth and justice had prevailed. As Emily and Daniel finally left the reception hall together, their hands intertwined, the cool night air seemed to whisper a promise that even in the darkest moments, clarity could emerge, and the human heart, though wounded, could endure. The wedding day had turned deadly. Nobody saw it coming. But in the aftermath, amid sorrow, shock, and betrayal, life, messy, painful, and unpredictable, would continue. And Emily, forever changed, would carry the lessons of that day with her, never again taking for granted the fragile trust that binds love, family, and friendship.